Hello, my name is Carl Niji, and I'm what's known as a Davis facilitator. What I'd like to talk about today is a question that was asked of me in a couple of weeks ago. A few months ago, probably about 6 months ago, I did a video that was called The Paradigm of a Learning Disability. It's video number 11 on my YouTube channel. In that video, I discussed the paradigm that both people with learning difficulties, so everybody who's on this spectrum of dyslexia, probably autism, neurological diversity, learning disabilities, whatever sort of label you want to put on there. In the DSM, this falls under this umbrella term, and the way we think of it in our society, the predominant way we think about it is a learning disability. And that we have got stuck in this paradigm, the way that we think about a learning disability and learning disabilities in general. So you can go and check that video out because I don't want to repeat it here. What came out of that was somebody sent me a question and more of a sort of a complaint or an observation. And this email that was sent to me, or a question that was sent to me, and we dialogued a little bit backwards and forwards, and those are posted in the description below on YouTube. The basic question that somebody asked me was, why don't you mention how much it costs to do a Davis method in your videos? Probably because it is a lot of money. He then goes on and says that I'm giving people false hope and that the school system is broken, and so who are the Davis programs for? Well, I thought this was actually a good question because it got me thinking about the price of Davis, the cost of dyslexia to people and other forms of learning difficulties, and what is the cost and what does it actually cost somebody financially and in all the other ways that we use the word cost. So what I wanted to cover today was this basic question. So the first answer to this question is, why don't I mention the cost in my videos, is because I live in Ottawa, Canada, and there are hundreds of Davis facilitators all the way around the world, and I do not want to misquote what somebody else is charging. I also think that it's not a good idea to sort of box myself into a price here in 2021 when in 2030 I may need to charge something different. Also, to be honest, the Davis program is charged as a lump sum. So when you compare the Davis program to other, say, phonics-based remedial programs, it looks expensive. But when you actually break down the amount of hours that you do Davis for versus the amount of hours that you end up doing phonics programs for, or what I was quoted, and phonics programs that I've done, the Davis program is probably a third or less of the cost of doing general phonics programs. The difficulty for people is you don't pay 50, 100, 150 once, twice, 3 times a week for a phonics program over 40, 48 weeks. You pay Davis in a lump sum. So that's really one of the main reasons why I think some people think Davis is expensive. But when you look in the big picture, it isn't. I'm also going to look at some other, a less expensive way of doing Davis if you wanted to. So I'm going to have to refer to my notes for this because it gets a little complicated for me. So there are different ways that you can do basically what we would call a Davis dyslexia correction program. I like to think of it as the Davis equivalent to a literacy program, even though the Davis Dyslexia Correction Program goes far beyond literacy in pretty much every respect. Mainly because of what Ron discovered was at the root cause of dyslexia and other learning problems. And we go to that root cause in the first program and deliver tools and solutions for that root cause. So the child or the adult doing a program can actually understand what's at the root cause, that it's not a negative thing, it's a positive thing. And when you understand the Davis method, you can literally dig yourself out of this hole that many people with dyslexia or other learning disabilities feel they are in when it comes to their education, learning situation. However, you still may not have the finances to go and see a Davis facilitator and do an intensive 5 to 6 day program to deal with that first, what I have wrongly called the first program. The reason I refer to it as the first program in other videos is really because it's probably 90% of the programs that I do with most of my clients. So I sort of think of it as step one. And in the process of doing Davis, it actually isn't though. There's various programs and I've done a whole video on that. And the best thing you can do if you are thinking about doing Davis is either talk to somebody at Davis International or go onto their main website and find the nearest facilitator to you and discuss what difficulties you are having, and then they can match the program to match your difficulties. Having said all of that, what I'm going to discuss today is the Davis Dyslexia Correction Program for home use as well. So if you're somebody who has a dyslexic person in your life, so let's say the majority of my clients are parents that have dyslexic children, this question from online was obviously, I'm assuming, was from an adult for themselves. So what you can do is you can call the Davis International and ask and talk to somebody there about whether your situation that you are thinking of doing a home program with a child or an adult, and ask them basic questions. So what you can do is you can go to Davis International and you can buy, it's called, I'll put a link below in the description, Davis Orientation and Symbol Mastery Home Kit. Now the cost of that kit in October 2021 is $329.95 US. You would have to also pay for shipping wherever you are. So that is inexpensive price-wise for any literacy kit or help or material. You would also need to make sure that you had a copy of the book, The Gift of Dyslexia. Now, what I recommend to people if they're going down that route and they're thinking of doing Davis, if I was a parent thinking of doing a Davis program with a child, say, or if I'm a partner thinking of helping my significant other, so adult to adult, still doable, I would encourage that adult who is thinking of delivering the program or the home use kit and using it to read the book, The Gift of Dyslexia by Ron Davis, and read it a couple of times. You are going to be using that book as your guide to go through that kit. And I think the first read for people is sometimes off-putting for some people. Other times people go, this is amazing, this is what I've been looking for. Other people go, hang on a minute. You need to be able to deliver those procedures in that book with the kit, and that's how it's intended. So if you have any questions about any of the kits that are online, call Davis directly or call a Davis facilitator directly, and they'll be able to guide you through that process, which kit would work best for you. There is also a young learners kit for children between the ages of 5 and 7. This is $149.95 US plus shipping. Now this is for parents who are noticing that their child is struggling. Maybe they haven't learned to read yet and they're in that beginning to teach the child to read at school or at home, and they're between the ages of 5 and 7. Once someone gets past 7, 7.5, if they haven't learned to read, then you are going to need the first kit that I talked about, the Davis Orientation Symbol Mastery Kit for home use. That kit is for anybody who's about age 8 all the way up to adult. So let's be really clear about this as well. This kit is not, and I repeat, not a self-help book or kit. I cannot take the book, read the book myself as somebody who's dyslexic, deliver those exercises to myself. That is not what it was designed to do. Maybe there's somebody out there that could do that, but they would really be the exception. This is a kit that works in conjunction with the book, The Gift of Dyslexia. Somebody who is ideally not dyslexic, a parent or an adult who's going to work with another adult, would read through the book, look at the kit, and then deliver the exercises that are in that book to that person that they're helping. I think the place where I've seen this work ideally, in sort of like the ideal situation, is for people who are homeschooling, because they can just slip it straight into the homeschooling syllabus and they don't have to do it after work, after school, on the weekends, in the summer holidays, that kind of thing. They can just build it into the homeschooling structure. They could do a couple of hours every morning until every exercise is done, and then do the follow-up work of all of the trigger words on top. So that, I think, is probably the ideal situation, an adult helping a child in a homeschooling situation. Variants on that could be an adult helping a child in the summer holidays. You would have time off in the summer holidays. You could, as an adult or a parent, you could come in and book a chunk of time, 2 weeks maybe, and go through those exercises with that child. The child would be off school, so you could do it in the summer holidays before they go back to school. That would also be a way of doing it. But there are various questions, whether you're using the Young Learners Kit or the full kit. It would be, you need to ask yourself some basic questions. Am I capable of doing this? And that's why I suggest you read the book first. As a parent or an adult helping another adult, you need to be confident that your relationship with that person is good enough that if you get stuck, if you start getting frustrated with each other, that you can back off and reapproach it later on. You also need to make sure that many children and parents have had a lot of conflict and a lot of difficulties around things like homework and focusing. You need to be also aware of that. And is that a relationship that is good, that you can do this program? Because it's quite a lot of work that you have to do. So that's why I think it works very well for homeschooling. What I suggest you do if you are thinking of doing this is to call a facilitator. I've spent time on the phone with people that have used the home kit and talk through them for at least half an hour, just to discuss and say what their situation is and will this be the best use of their time. And I think most facilitators around the world would probably give you that time to do that. So I would encourage that. And I would definitely encourage reaching out to the main Davis organization. So that would be the least cost to you as an individual or a parent. The downside of doing it that way would really be that it would take longer. And I honestly don't know how much longer it would take. When I, as a Davis facilitator, do a program with somebody, generally speaking, for this Davis Dyslexia Correction Program, that is generally 5 days. From time to time, it can take 6 days, depending on the person, their situation, how far they are behind with their literacy, where they are. So a comparison, a 5 to 6 day program with me might be, if you're doing this at home with a kit, might be anywhere from a month to 2 to 3 months to deliver that program, depending on how much time you have to deliver it. And that's why I think the ideal situation is probably a homeschooling situation, because you can make the time. So that would be sort of the trade-off. The other trade-off that you would have if you were trying to do this at home for yourself would be you don't have the experience of that Davis facilitator. I have 11 years experience as a Davis facilitator. I've worked with people as young as 6 years old and as old as 54, I believe. The 6-year-old was just learning to read, and so we did a young learners program with her, and the 54-year-old had never read a book in his life, and he just wanted to be able to read a book. Both very successful programs, and I've worked with everything in between. And most facilitators, I would think, have worked with everybody in between those age categories. There isn't an upper age limit, realistically, but I think there probably is a lower age limit, although I've had one facilitator I know, I think, has worked with someone who's as young as 4.5, but I've never done that. But again, if you're interested in doing a Young Learners program, talk to your nearest Davis facilitator, get them to say what they think of your situation, because it is very a personal thing. The other benefit of coming to see a Davis facilitator is that is our training. We've been trained to do different programs, and we have procedures that we're trained to do that you actually can't put in a book, or would be extremely difficult to put in a book. So we have extra strings to our bow, or extra tools that we have available to us. Many Davis facilitators also have children. They either tend to be mothers and fathers of children with either dyslexia, ADD, ADHD, sort of the whole neurologically diverse spectrum of people, including autism, Asperger's. And facilitators, either mums or dads that have children in this, who have these difficulties, or they're like me. I'm dyslexic myself, and I have been diagnosed with dyslexia, a learning disability, dysgraphia, dyspraxia, dysphasia, a certain amount of ADHD, and various other difficulties that I've had as well. So when I'm talking to a 6-year-old, 10-year-old, 12-year-old, 15-year-old, 30-year-old, 40-year-old, I did my first Davis program when I was 40 years old, and I was aware of my dyslexia when I was 10 years old. I know what it's like to be dyslexic and have that experience at all those different age levels and all those different programs that have been delivered to me over the years. So I think that's the other piece that you get when you go to a Davis facilitator, of course, which you won't get if you use the kit. However, I'm the more expensive option. A Davis program with a kit that you're doing at home is only going to be $350 plus your shipping, roughly in that price. For a Davis facilitator is going to be more than that. Now, we can sort of expand on that. We think of price. I once calculated how much money it cost me to learn to read. As I said earlier, I did my first Davis program when I was almost 40 years old. Before that, I had done, as an adult, 2 types of phonics programs. The longest one was 2.5 years over about a 3.5 year period. And I had done that from about the age of 28, I think, to about 31, 32. And when I stopped doing it, I got to the end of it and I said, okay, am I done? They said, yes, now all you need to do is practice. And I did practice, but it effectively fell apart for me because of my working situation. And my reading just fell apart again. I found I regressed. What I was doing personally is I was meeting with a tutor. I'm not going to name the program. It's just a very, very popular phonics-based program. They were using different methods from different programs, but they were definitely rooted in probably one of the most popular methods that's out there. And I was being charged $50 plus tax, and that was I was 28. So we're looking at least 20 years ago. I'm now 54. So I was looking at, and I'd done even earlier than that. So I'd done a program when I was in my late 20s. I'd also done something when I was in my mid 20s. And I'd done several programs as a child that my mum had paid for, and I'd been schooled in England. So I tried multiple things. When I added that up one day, I sort of stopped at about $80,000. When if I added all the Davis training in that I'd done as well, I realized I was topping sort of $100,000 to understand my own dyslexia and why I couldn't do this thing that everybody was saying is really simply and easy. So yes, I think at this point I'll quote one of the deans of Harvard, who once said, yes, the price of private education is high, but the cost of ignorance is far higher, it's far greater. And I don't mean that dyslexic people are ignorant. I mean the ability to learn to read is the ability to educate yourself. The truth about going to school is if I can focus my mind, if I can read at grade level and I can think sequentially, then I will do well within that system. And that's actually what the Davis programs allow us to do. That's what they're teaching us to do, showing us to do. What is this thing called a learning disability? How does it work? What is this thing called dyslexia, dysgraphia, dysphasia, dyspraxia? How does that work? that it is not a disability, that it is disabling inside systems that don't understand it. But what Ron discovered was that at the root cause of dyslexia and other learning disabilities is something really positive that is horribly misunderstood. The next is, well, what can I do about it as an individual to really help myself? And what is it that triggers me? And how do I stop myself from being triggered? So that's what the Davis programs do. That's what they were designed to do. And that's what they deliver. So from my point of view, as somebody who is a card-carrying dyslexic member of the Dyslexic Club, if there is such a thing, as a Davis facilitator, and as somebody who's known that they had these difficulties since age 10 years old, the Davis program for me, quite simply, is the quickest, it's the simplest, it's the easiest, and it is the least expensive and the most cost effective to my wallet and my life that I have ever seen. If it wasn't, I would just simply not be doing it. So I hope this answers this question of why I don't put my price on the internet. There are some simple, obvious answers to that as well. So I hope this has been helpful. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.